I don't want Canada with two speeds, rural and urban. I want rural Canadians have as good quality health care, as good quality education, as good quality internet access as any other Canadians.
Liberal leader Michael Ignatieff right there promising high-speed internet access for all Canadians and trying to bridge the rural-urban divide. It's a big issue for all the leaders in this campaign. Now, he's the first leader to talk about this internet policy in this campaign, but now a group called Openmedia.ca, they were the group behind the Stop the Meter petition against the so-called user-based billing, has launched a campaign. It's called Vote for the Internet. It's aimed at getting candidates on the record about their digital policies. So, speaking of all you folks who are on Facebook and Twitter and everything, what are all the party's internet policies, and should all Canadians have access to high-speed internet, as the Liberals are promising? Joining me now in Edmonton, the Conservative candidate Mike Lake is here. In Toronto, the NDP candidate Andrew Cash is sitting beside the Liberal candidate Martha Hall-Findlay. And let's start with Mike Lake. The Liberals plan to expand high-speed internet access to all Canadians. Do the Conservatives agree with that strategy? Should all Canadians have access to high-speed internet?
Well, of course, Evan, a couple of years ago, we set aside $225 million for broadband internet, rural internet strategy. We've also taken several measures to create more competition in the environment, starting as soon as we came to power in 2006 with our measures that we took, the directive that we sent to the CRTC to introduce more market-based evaluation methods, regulation in terms of the way that they approach the internet, approach wireless. You know, the whole point is to increase competition. Virtually every step that we've taken as a government has been in that direction, whether it be overturning the Global Live decision, of course, which we thought was a bad decision in the first place, and again, sending the CRTC back to review the usage-based billing decision, which we thought was a very bad decision for Canadian consumers.
But just for the record, I just want to, according to the internet costs, and I'm looking at a chart from the OECD here, Canada has among the highest monthly subscription prices for the internet, $54.24. You know, the U.S., Spain, Netherlands, Iceland, Poland, Germany, Korea, Japan, Sweden, Italy, Greece, all much, much lower. We're at the bottom of the pyramid there. Why is that the case so long? What do you make of that, Mike?
Well, I think the competition is the key issue, right? We need to take measures that are going to see increased competition in the marketplace. Of course, we can also talk about telecommunications and foreign investment in telecommunications here in Canada. Of course, every time we talk about that, the opposition parties get up in arms and saying that that's something that we want to avoid. But of course, what we want to see is more investment in Canadian infrastructure. We want to see more investment in competition to some of the bigger players. There aren't enough players in the industry. We want to see other players get involved, and we want to bring new technologies from around the world into Canada. And there's various measures that we can do to do that.
Lots on the table there. Let me get in the other two candidates here. Martha Hall-Findlay, we heard from Michael Ignatieff there saying he wants to expand access to high-speed internet. But then you've got all these issues about the price of high-speed internet for rural areas and for urban areas. What do you make of what Mike Lake's just been saying?
Well, the first thing is that, as you said, Evan, it's on the table, but it hasn't gotten off the table. I mean, Mike says that even as far back as 2 years ago they announced something, but classic Conservative announced but not do anything with it. We still don't have internet access for all. Mike, we still do not have anywhere close to full internet access for all Canadians. So one, Evan, absolutely. We've been saying that for a long time, and we still don't have it. So that's clear in terms of a Liberal policy platform. It is something that we need to equalize urban and rural, but there's also a tremendous amount of innovative business ideas happening in more remote areas that they cannot capitalize on those without that high-speed internet. Two, Mike Lake has to be very careful about lumping all questions about foreign investment into, well, yay or nay. Because with telecommunications, you have two very distinct things. You have the pipes, you have the transmission, the infrastructure, and in that, you know, in terms of ownership, that's a whole lot less sensitive to the content that is transferred across those pipes. And yes, the Liberal Party
That's why I said telecommunications.
Yeah. Well, but Mike, I think we have to be very clear for Canadians. And third, we certainly believe in net neutrality. We certainly believe that internet should not only be accessible but inexpensive for all Canadians, and that should be very much equal. I will say, Evan, that there's a big difference in Canada. It's something we have to recognize. We have far fewer people at the same time as far greater distances geographically. And so whenever anybody is comparing prices, it's important for us to remember that there are those factors. But the last point, the bit about Global Live, for the Cabinet to turn around, the Global Live decision was based on the rules existing at the time. If the Conservatives want to change the rules, let them do it honestly and come out and say exactly what they will do in terms of foreign ownership, and then we can have the debate instead of going around the back door and trying to go around the rules.
I want to bring in Andrew Cash here. Hang on, because there's a group called Openmedia, and they got a lot of success, I thought, this past winter in getting people to sign into this petition to stop this usage-based billing. It became a real big issue. They're now about to launch this Vote for the Internet campaign. The group is asking for all 308 federal candidates to sign up on its website. Let me just give our audience a picture, Andrew. They say, if you hope to represent us in Parliament, become a pro-internet candidate by promising to stand up for open and accessible internet. By signing here, you are agreeing to stop the pay meter on our internet if elected. You are also agreeing to increase broadband access, competition, transparency, and choice. You're running for the NDP, Andrew. What's your view on that? Would you sign on for that?
Well, I was one of the first to sign on this morning, and I just want to give you an example of why this is so important. A couple of years ago, the CBC decided to make available an episode of Canada's Next Great Prime Minister via BitTorrent. Well, what happened, thousands downloaded it, but it took 11 hours for some people. Now, here you have a private mega corporation choking the flow of internet of information and content from the public broadcaster to the very people, the Canadian public, who pay for the content through their taxes. That's why net neutrality is so important. That's why I was one of the first to sign today. And I also want to say, you know, it's one thing to talk about access to high-speed internet right across Canada, but, you know, Canadians aren't going to be fooled by the fact that we have some of, and you already mentioned, the highest internet, the highest cell phone rates, highest wireless rates. We got one of the highest bank fees in the world here. Canadians know they're getting ripped off, and we've got to do something about that.
All right, so you would sign on. Mike Lake, would you sign on for that? Now, this is about caps, usage-based billing, and access all across the board. Conservatives sign on that?
I haven't seen the specifics of the thing that you're talking about, but I can say that consistent with the decision that the government made on the usage-based billing, overturning that usage-based billing decision, the government is acting consistently and has acted consistently over the last 5 years in the interest of more competition in the industry to bring those prices down and increase the technology that Canadians have access to. Martha's point that we haven't started, that's an interesting point. We have $225 million that's being spent right now. It's over 3 years, and we're about halfway through that. We just invested, or proposed to invest in the budget that she voted against, $80 million to bridge the technology gap between small and medium-sized businesses and college and universities through IRAP. We had $60 million to post-secondary institutions to increase enrollment in digital economy type professions. So we had significant measures, among others, in the budget 2011 to address some of the issues, and Martha voted against all of them. And I do want to point out, in terms of some of the other stuff, we had a copyright bill before Parliament that would have increased access to education, increased technology, the use of technology in terms of those far-reaching places that Martha talks about reaching. And the Liberals slowed it down at every turn. All three opposition parties slowed it down.
Martha, I got about 30 seconds, and so everyone's had a long chat here, but Martha, hopefully 30 seconds, and I really want to get Andrew Cash, and he's only had one kick at the can here. Martha?
Well, one, Mike has to be at least somewhat honest in terms of the copyright bill. We've been trying to work extremely cooperatively, and it hasn't happened at all. Yeah. But we do support net neutrality. We do support, I actually would like to see the details of that before I sign. I think that's a prudent thing today, and it was brought to my attention today. But we absolutely support internet access for all Canadians, high-speed internet access for all Canadians at a rate that is absolutely something that everybody can afford.
Okay.
Well, we've got some of the highest costs for the internet in the world. And really, you know, Canadians watching this show, they got to be scratching their head at all this bafflegab when they're trying to balance their budgets at home, and they're looking at their cell phone bill, their internet, their cable bills being some of the highest in the world, and they're wondering, well, what are you guys really yelling about? We need to start bringing in competition. We need to start setting the table for small ISPs in this country to get a bit of a leg up, so that we can develop you know, an industry here that, and so when we're talking about foreign investment, we already know that we've got a healthy crop of Canadian ISP companies that can offer services to Canadians at a much more affordable rate. This is an affordability issue, Evan, as well as an accessibility issue.